AI is everywhere. AI is sort of integrated in multiple workflows across department, and if you're able to orchestrate these tools right, that's where AI will sort of start functioning the way you want and increase the productivity. Don't delegate AI to sort of tell you what to do.
It's now leveling marketing as a profession. The average can be good, the good can be getting better.
Yeah.
And of course, great will always remain great because of the fact that they are authentic to the craft.
That sort of differentiates a good marketer from a bad marketer. Now, if you've not been able to train that AI tool right, that's exactly where you fail.
Yeah. Welcome to the B2B Marketing Podcast, presented by B2B World Summit, powered by Brand Story Digital. I'm your host, Soumya Muni, and today's podcast, we'd be talking about AI in marketing, signal versus noise. My guest today is Manila Ronyar. She is the Senior Director for Product Marketing at Birdeye. Manila, great to have you here, and welcome to the podcast. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Soumya. I'm Manila. I've been a tech marketer for good 20 years now. I currently work for Birdeye. I manage the product marketing effort. Birdeye basically is an agentic marketing platform for multi-location brands. That is where it specializes. We help B2C organizations get discovered in this AI era, drive conversations, and eventually conversions that they need for their business.
So, Manila, AI is everywhere, right? We are using it in content, research, analytics, customer experience. So one can feel very overwhelmed with the use of AI tools and influx of so much information around us. So how do you think teams can feel less overwhelmed with the use or influx of AI?
That's a good question, Soumya. I think there's no naysaying that AI is everywhere. AI is sort of integrated in multiple workflows across department and sort of enabling even collaboration between departments. I think the overwhelmed part of AI comes in when you face the problem of plenty, so to say. And this is exactly where, when you use multiple tools, that amount of oversight that is needed to make sure that you've got the right output from that AI, that amount of review that is needed, that amount of training that is needed to make sure that the tools understand what exactly you need, I think that is where people are getting overwhelmed. I would say if you're able to orchestrate these tools right, if you're able to build the relationship between these tools right, that's where AI will sort of start functioning the way you want and sort of impact or increase the productivity as against overwhelming you.
Yeah. So you speak about a very interesting topic about orchestration, right? So orchestrating AI itself is subject matter expertise in my view. It requires you to know the depth of the topic that you are working on, the platform you choose, the decisions you want to make using a certain tool, X versus Y. So what, according to you, should never be delegated to AI?
I think there are two parts to your question, right? One is around making sure that you've got the right tool, right? While you get the right tool, the other part of it is making sure that you've educated the AI correctly. The second part is that AI tools are there to sort of assist you, right? To enable you, maybe be your co-pilot, so to say. What you shouldn't, in my mind, delegate is the authenticity of your thought, right? You can't really go to an AI tool and say that, tell me what to do. Correct. I mean, that's not what AI is for. What you need to tell AI is, this is what I want to do. I mean, make it function, right? So in my mind, the one thing that you shouldn't really ever delegate, and also to not lose your own essence, is your experience that bakes into your decision. Okay, I mean, use AI to sense check your decision, but don't delegate AI to sort of tell you what to do.
Yeah, so Very interesting. Thinking and judgment both should be human in the loop and not be done
Absolutely.
by AI. So, I often hear marketing teams tell me that they've been using AI and they have to prove return on investment on AI, right? Especially leaders have to go to the C-suite or their decision makers to make sure that AI is expensive. So therefore, you need to prove that AI has merit in your workflow or in your budget. So how do you sort of measure success of AI? And if you can't measure, what is that definition of success that you would look for AI? And if you can't measure, how can someone go about measuring that?
That's an and there's a change in this. Okay, it's an interesting one, and there's a change in this. Very recently, in our organization itself, we had this leadership meet wherein we were talking about using AI. Okay, and making sure that we are being more productive, we are being more efficient. The ROI that we associate with AI doesn't always has to be in terms of dollar. The attribution of dollar to everything that you do with AI may practically be not possible. I heard one of my co-founders sort of say, gone are the days when you would come to me and show me an output with a dialogue saying that, hey, I worked 20 hours to deliver this. Because now that you have AI, you don't need to really work 20 hours to deliver it, right?
Yeah.
So if you really look at the kind of ROIs that we're really talking about now, it can range right from business that it yields to mental health of the employees, right? How much time are you saving? Are you able to give that time back to your family, right? Are you able to give that time back to yourself, right? So if I really think in the larger realm of things, the ROI, obviously one part of ROI around AI is being able to be more efficient, be more productive, yield more, get more business. At the other side of it is also around making sure that your employees are benefiting personally, and there's this system goal and there's this self goal. Both of them are being met, right?
Oh, that's a beautiful message for every aspiring marketer or a marketer who's looking to use AI. How can you, improve your mental health by saving some of the drudgery associated with day-to-day and mundane tasks, right? So now, in my view, we talk about AI implemented in our workflows, and obviously it is making us super productive, efficient. But nobody talks about the failures and the disappointments that we use in AI, right? And at org level, people are hesitant to commit to AI fully because there is this fear of failure and disappointment. Have you experienced that personally in your journey? And if you'd like to share some of that with our audiences, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think all tools, like they're successful, they've got this, the other side of it wherein it may not function, right? I think the way to look at it is that at the end, AI is a tool, right? It's we've got these uber ultra smart LLMs that work behind this AI. Now, the failure and disappointments, I at least tend to associate with your ability to guide the AI. Okay. Now, the AI will work the way that you've guided. I mean, there was this saying that one of my mentors had said that, you're as good as the strongest person in your team and as weak as the weakest person in your team, right? As a manager. It's similar with AI. So AI is another sort of employee in your team, right? Now, if you've not been able to train that AI tool right, that is where disappointments come in, right? And I'll give you an example. I've been working very recently on sales plays, and I've been going to these LLM models, asking them to sort of help me narrate the story, right? Okay, help me change the way a seller would actually see the content as against how a customer would see the content, right? And I had to sort of do rounds and rounds and rounds of telling my AI tool to really say that this is what I want to say. But what you're giving me is something else. It is too much fluff. It is not sort of bringing the point out in a sharp way that can eventually help my sellers sort of, consume this piece of work. So I think the disappointments is like I said, if you've not trained it right, if you're not using the right AI tool, you will go through disappointment. And more than disappointment, I would say, Soumya, that it's a journey of learning, right? I mean, as you see multiple AI tools, you would also eventually understand that, okay, this is the tool to use for this particular use case, and this is the tool to use for some other use case, right? And your time spent around sort of educating that tool. I think that's how I would see.
And yeah, I think it's committing yourself and viewing AI as an assistant. And like every tool, there are pros and cons of using
Absolutely.
it, and therefore failure and disappointments that come. And no tool can be all and end all, right?
True.
So please, I think the message here is like use AI as an assistant, an enabler to making you more efficient, productive, and also build efficacy for what you do. And that's how leaders in organizations should also view. But given the huge amount of investments that companies are making in AI, what are the 2-3 pragmatic principles that you would recommend leaders take when they are making a decision on a tool or a set of tools for AI?
That's a good one. I think with the choices that we have, and like you earlier said, that all of these are expensive tools, right? If you really want quality, you sort of need to put in investment. So no wonder you want ROI out of it. The first thing that sort of comes to my mind is that don't use AI for the heck of using AI, right?
Correct.
A tool that has worked for somebody else may not necessarily work for your organization, right?
Or your use case.
Or your use case, exactly.
yeah.
So the first thing that you need to really tell yourself is, what do I want this tool to do, and at what level, at what maturity, right?
Yeah.
How much am I willing to invest as a time in terms of bringing this tool to a level that it is best suited for my company and it understands my context, right? And when I say my context, my business context, my customer context, right? Now, if you're able to sort of drive that decision, then perhaps you'll be making more optimized decisions to just take those tools which are necessary. I'll just give you an example. Typically, you would see, as marketers, all of us run campaigns, right? Now, a tool that is designed to run a B2B campaign, sort of driving a little bit of search, mostly around website, sort of driving traffic to a CTA that you've put across, versus a B2C company who operates in a very specific zip code and is looking at a very specific set of customers and needs to build that relationship to continuously call that customer, back into their store, and also build a lot of customer context, so that when the B2C company actually is reaching out to its contact again, there is a lot of relevance in what he or she is talking, right? So imagine that I am maybe a cafe in your locality, and I am reaching out to you saying that, hey Soumya, last time you visited, you took our salad and you loved it, right? Now we've got an upgraded version for that salad and we're running this promo, so we would like you to visit. Now that's so personalized. Correct? That's so precise, as against getting something saying that we've got a new salad in store, come, okay? Now that's the difference that you can make by choosing the right tool, okay? And that is where your investments or ROI sort of goes up.
Yeah. And as AI tends to become more autonomous, right? Both in responding to customers or taking some decisions for you, researching for you, some of these call to actions in campaigns are now autonomously driven. What do you think is the use of that as AI becomes more autonomous, whether it's responding to customers or doing research for you or some of the call to actions across campaigns, what do you think is the ethical risk associated with them? How would you responsibly use AI?
I think this is something that is in everybody's mind, Soumya. I think you've asked a very interesting question. We were doing this voice of customer research. We were speaking to customers. We were, telling them that, now you can have an agent which can drive conversations for you, right? So you don't need to invest so much on having humans working 24/7. You can sort of optimize that. You can give them bigger roles, sort of repurpose their roles, right? And there were two kind of firms, and not just firm, but two kind of firms who sort of brought around a very interesting point of view. One of them was this healthcare marketer, and the other one was a legal firm. Okay. Both of them had a very strong opinion around, hey, as much as we want to try AI, we have a company policy which restricts us from using it because we can't give an unvalidated medical advice, or we cannot give an unvalidated legal advice to somebody who's interacting with our agent, correct? And which is so true, because you're talking about either a long-term damage, or you're looking at legal cases coming your way, right?
Reputation.
Correct. Your reputation is at risk, your brand is at risk.
Yes.
You may lose trust, right, of
Correct.
customers, which is so important. So I think, one, making sure that you've got a defined use case for AI which is not crossing the boundary of getting you into or which is not crossing the boundary about giving wrong information or doing more harm to your end customers is something that you really need to be cautious and careful about. Okay, if you're not cautious there, you kind of defeat the purpose of using AI.
Yeah.
Okay, that's one thing. The other thing is that as any tool, right, you also need to create the right guardrails for AI, especially around agents. So when you talk about autonomous agents, these autonomous agents are trained by you. They have their mind of own, and they are going to make decisions because you've allowed them to, right? But allowing them to make any decision is something that we should be cautious about. There are guardrails that we really need to put, right? And these guardrails would be around making sure that your brand voice, your brand entity is sort of taken care of, right? You've educated the agent to sort of be within this guardrail. The guardrail about what kind of language that they can use.
Yep.
It could be more around what is the context of customer that they can use, right? We are in the era of compliance, where sensitive personal information or personal identifier information, all are things that you need to be cautious about, right? So autonomous agents, as much as they are sort of helping you drive business, they're helping you drive conversations, you need to make sure that you've created these very strong guardrails, that they operate within that boundary to not do any damage to your brand or customer trust, so to say, or customer
Excellent
experience.
point, actually. So, in my view, AI doesn't replace marketers' workflows or their work. It exposes them to a large degree to not share information which is unethical, unvalidated, and can lead to loss of trust, reputation. So it sort of keeps the marketer on his or her toes to do the thinking and to make sure that you are responsible enough to use the information strategically and well and in an ethical and responsible way.
Exactly.
So that also brings me to the next question that I want to ask you, is that in the age of AI, what differentiates a good, average and a great marketer? I mean, what skills do you think a marketer should have using AI so that they become proficient in their job?
I think we've come a full circle, Soumya, because I would actually link it to the first conversation that we had, right? That if you are a great marketer who wants to use AI, one, you will never outsource your thinking to the AI. Second, you would ensure that you are using the right AI tools and you've trained it correctly, right? So that it gives you the output and eventually you're able to drive that outcome that you need out of it. I would say a bad marketer or not so great marketer is somebody who blindly sort of uses tools, okay? And not just that, then the marketer doesn't even go and sort of validate the output of the AI. I mean, anything that AI gives, you simply go and run with it. That's exactly where you fail.
Yeah.
Right, that's exactly where you fail. So I think that sort of differentiates a good marketer from a bad marketer, somebody who's able to orchestrate well, select the right tool, and train the AI well.
I've also heard marketers tell me that with AI, it's now leveling marketing as a profession where the good average or the average can be good, the good can be getting better.
Yeah.
And of course, great will always remain great because of the fact that they are authentic to the craft.
True.
And they know marketing and they understand the depth, and that obviously no AI can replace.
Absolutely.
Right? So good. This was wonderful, and thank you for the depth and understanding and bringing that understanding to your audience on how AI can augment and probably assist and enable marketers today. And now we've reached to the end of this podcast, and we'll do a small lightning round. It's a fun round. And I'll ask you a few questions. You can answer at the speed of thought or light. The first thought that comes to your mind could be a sentence or a word or a phrase. The first one is your go-to source of creative inspiration.
ChatGPT for now.
Okay. None of the Claudes or the other LLMs?
At this point, I'm hooked to GPT. I've trained it so well that it understands me.
Okay.
So I'm hooked to GPT.
Good. A marketing buzzword you would happily retire?
Without a second thought, email deliverability rate, open rate, click-through rate. I think they've just become vanity metrics.
Oh, redundant, huh?
Absolutely redundant.
One word that best describes your leadership style?
Oh wow, you should ask my team, but I think what I feel is that I don't micromanage and I allow them to fail. So if you fail, come back and we'll redo it, but fail once so that you know what works, what doesn't work.
So fail fast, but we are not here to fail this podcast. Thank you, Manila, for being part of our podcast. We enjoyed having you here. If you enjoyed today's podcast and want to know more insights about B2B marketing, you must join us at the B2B World Summit and Awards on March 20th in Namma, Bengaluru. This is Soumya Moni signing off from this episode. Until next time, keep telling good marketing stories.